This is my the only short story I've ever written, and it came out to 15,000 words. So I've discovered I can't write short stories. Just a bit of a background on it. I actually started writing this in about 1998 as a thing to read at a festival. And the progression of the festival was there was 5 people on the panel, and we were doing like the history of writing. So Kerry Greenwood, for instance, wrote a story, told a story about writing something with a pen and ink, and then the next person was, you know, writing a story on a typewriter, and then it went to a computer, and then mine was just simply a story set in cyberspace, which was like really groovy then. And so this story has lots of cyberspace in it, but I ultimately finished it only a few years ago, and then climate change had happened, so there's that in here as well, which is why it ended up being 15,000 words, not 5. So the airboat splashed to a stop outside the dilapidated facade of 223 Collins Street. I hadn't said a word, but the pilot had rightly figured this was the place to drop me. Even without the 5 cops providing crowd control on the dock out front, I knew it was the right place to be too, because I'd been here before. I also knew I was about to face one of those dreaded moments when the victim at the scene was someone with whom I'd been acquainted. I powered up my anti-grav pod, hauled myself into the seat and strapped in. The idiots loitering in the drizzle, hoping to catch a glimpse of something dead, really pissed me off. I made a close calculation and just cleared the heads of the nearest onlookers. I did shout, "Look out," so it wasn't entirely my fault that half of them ended up face down on the wet promenade. "Thought they revoked your licence for that thing," Officer Jordan said. "Just a wild rumour," I said over my shoulder as I hovered towards the lift. "Another one?" she smiled. "Lifts aren't working, by the way. Chief said use the fire stairs." "Oh, great." I leant forward to check for downward traffic before I began my ascent. The tightly angled stairwells in these late 19th century buildings were not designed for anti-grav manoeuvring. In fact, they wouldn't be much use in a fire. At least they'd only burn down to water level these days. Aggie and I, yeah, my inanimate anti-grav pod does have a name, made our way up to what had once been the 19th floor, but was now the 14th above high tide canal level. The fire door at the top opened directly into the warehouse space of Napa Trading, which overflowed the entire 15,000 squares. Rows of metal shelving stretched in every direction, piled with terminals, Nauru engine parts, jacket tools, odd pieces of weaponry and satellite components, cranial fittings, vintage hologram projectors, service box vid screens, and even antique radio and TV parts. The reception area was an old Teflon desk with a metre of clear space around it. "What's the deal?" I asked the officer who was ferreting in the apparent havoc. "Place has been ransacked," she said. "I'm looking for clues." "Wouldn't bother," I said. "This place always looked like a lunatic looking for a whippet screw went through at warp speed. Where's..." "Chief's in the back, with the cutter and the deader," she pointed. "The chief? He never leaves HQ. Reckon this case has connections that require his physical participation." I hovered in the general direction of the chief, the coroner and the body, keeping to the dead centre of the aisles in case I brought a century's worth of recycled tech down on my head. The sound of Chief Bascom's gravelly voice biting off orders prompted 2 med-techs to scuttle out of the corner office, as if keeping their skin intact depended only on getting out of his reach. This was strange indeed. In 6 years, I hadn't known him to leave HQ, let alone attend a crime scene. "You're scaring the children, Chief," I said from the doorway to the room where Chief Bascom was leaning over the corpse that lay in the crash chair, and Dr. Juan Delta Ann was crawling around on the floor. "Where in Hades have you been?" he bellowed. "Having my toenails buffed," I said. The chief gave me the once-over from my head to where my feet would be if I had any, and snorted, "And my cat has joined the Space Cadets." I ignored the dig. The casual observer might think the old man didn't like me, but in truth the chief loves me like a daughter. Okay, like the daughter he never wanted, but he loves me nevertheless. "Why are you so grouchy? After all, that's my uncle you're prodding." I floated over to take a look. "Jimmy Strong's long past caring, and I didn't think you'd give a damn," he stated. "True." I looked down at the deceased. Jimmy wasn't really my uncle, that being a scientific impossibility, but he had cohabitated with my Aunt Juno for 5 years, until last summer. She'd insisted I called him uncle, a request I avoided by not calling him anything at all. Poor stupid bastard. He hadn't been good for much when he was alive, and now he was good for nothing at all. Judging from the muscle spasm in the face that contained his vacant eyes, even his brain would be rejected by the organ banks.